Sometimes in life, if we are lucky, we experience moments that are filled with such wonder and surprise and mystery and beauty that they bring about a sort of personal transformation. We call these God moments, mountaintop experiences. Some interpret this or these moments as a call from God, or an encounter with the sacred, a mystical, holy encounter. These moments or experiences are not easily explained. We just sort of live with them, and we feel them. Some people can't wait to talk about these moments with somebody that they trust deeply. Others don't ever want to talk about them because of fear of what people might think, because sometimes they get a little crazy. Statistics show that 80% of people have had a mystical experience. Don't bother if you feel, what about me? I'm one of that 20%. What's wrong with me? 100% of people have these experiences. Sometimes it just takes a little while to look closely and deeply enough to encounter them. This week I received a call from someone I know who was rather shaken by one of these mystical encounters. And so I asked the person to come to my office and talk about it. And at least in the short term, this was an experience that led to a deep consideration of a life change. In today's lesson from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, verses 28 through 36, we are treated to one of these transforming moments in the life of Jesus. It's a vision of glory, to use a biblical term, on the mountaintop. It's a revelation of God through the life of Jesus. And so we call this in the church the Transfiguration, and celebrate today, always the Sunday before Lent, as Transfiguration Sunday, sort of a strange term. The story of Jesus' Transfiguration provides an opportunity for each of us to remember those times when we encounter God in the most extraordinary ways, but also those times that we encounter God in the ordinary routines of life, knowing that God is present and it is love which connects us. So we turn to Scripture. The Transfiguration is the story of God appearing in this dazzling display of light and radiance in the face of Jesus. And it's also a transforming moment in the lives of his three closest disciples, Peter, James, and John, who go up with Jesus on this mountain to pray. The experience was remembered by the early church so much that they labeled a mountain Mount Tabor. Some labeled Mount Hermon in Lebanon, but some will call Mount Tabor the place where Jesus went up a mountain to pray. That's tradition. In the Bible, mountains are important places because it's on mountains where people have encounters with God. And in today's first lesson from Exodus, Moses encounters God on Mount Sinai, and his face reflects the glory of God after receiving the Torah, the commandments, the teachings from God. And so, in the story, Jesus is on the mountain, and is transfigured before his disciples. The cloud, the dazzling white clothes are biblical ways of saying this was a transcendent moment. For a brief time on the mountain, James and John and Peter see the glory of Jesus, and they recognize him and his identity as God's chosen. This is my son. You better listen. These words are the same words that were spoken at Jesus' baptisms. Baptism at the Jordan, which was his call into ministry. And so it is now another critical transition point in the life of Jesus. This mountaintop experience is a turning point for Jesus. In the gospel accounts, this is the place and the time that will conclude the ministry of Jesus in Galilee. And from here on out, Jesus will turn his face toward Jerusalem. In verse 31, Moses and the prophet Elijah appear with Jesus and are discussing his exodus. The Greek word in the Bible means departure. Jesus will depart from Galilee to Jerusalem, and Jesus will encounter the Jewish temple leadership, the chief priests, the high priests, the scribes, and the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. This is simply a preview of the death and resurrection that will be Jesus' glorification. And as we know, death will not have the final word. It's difficult to know what to make of this story historically. I mean, did the disciples actually experience this moment on the mountain? Or is this narrative a statement by the gospel writers that speak to who Jesus was, his identity? Even if this narrative was a creation of the early church, it remains significant that Jesus is linked with the two great figures of Jewish history, Moses and Elijah. Moses representing the law, Elijah representing the prophetic teachings, Jesus representing the new age. Jesus in the company of Moses and Elijah, it can't get better than that. We need these moments. We need these mountaintop experiences. We need these unexplainable experiences because it's through these that we catch a glimpse of the mystery of this cosmos and our place in it. We catch a glimpse of the glory of God shining upon our human journey. We need these moments as individual disciples, and we need these moments as church. Because these moments move us. They unsettle us. And they stir us from complacency and apathy. They stir us from a smallness of vision. And they put before us a larger vision of where God is calling us to be. The bad thing about these kinds of experiences is that they are temporary. I had one once. And I won't tell you about it because it's simply too bizarre. But it was bizarre enough that I needed to go and talk to someone about it. And it was bizarre enough to change the whole course of my direction in life. And every time I preach these moments are temporary, but they can be, for any and each of us, quite transforming. Because we tend to remember their effect on us, and we continue to be inspired by these encounters, even as they fade away into the ordinary routine of daily life. So, church, today is a shining moment for us. You have to be open to it. You have to be aware of the presence of God around you in the faces of each other. You have to be aware of the presence of God as you journey the streets of Lincoln, Nebraska, and as you go outside wherever you are. Because that mystical encounter awaits you. Be aware of the Christ light that illumines the mind and the heart, that awakens the spirit. Because we do not have to be complacent. We do not have to be bored or apathetic with life. It's exciting. It's mystical. But we just have to search and look for it. We are indeed called, each one of us, to be a reflection of God's glory and radiance, because it's that light of God flowing through us. Flowing through us, transforming us from sleepy disciples into courageous leaders. Transforming us from ordinary church members to living images of Jesus Christ. Taking us up to mountaintops and down into the valleys. So like Jesus, we will serve. And we will sacrifice ourselves so that the world itself might be transformed and healed and made whole. We invite you today to become a part of a movement that seeks to bring transformation and healing to the world and to the community around us. And as always, invite you